Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PowettPlay Podcast. This is a special episode as we look to preview the Champions Trophy. And with Kieran joining us, as always, who do you see? What do you see happening, and how do you see it all unfolding, really?
I'm not sure. The teams have sort of gone a bit haywire. Lots of injuries, etc.
Big time, yeah.
Before getting to what I was seeing happening, what I'd like to see in terms of formatting of the Champions Trophy, because it's sort of becoming a pointless thing at the moment, where it's just sort of another World Cup type thing. I think if they do it sort of a Champions League knockout stage draw type of tournament,
right,
where it's elimination straight through from the off. Include a bit more teams. So you include the top, let's say 16 teams. You have two groups of 8. And it's literally knockout. Winner goes through, loser goes home straight away. That keeps it as a short, sharp tournament, and you just keep having draws at the end of each game to see who you'll face next. I think that would be very interesting, because then that makes the tournament a do or die. Literally, there's no room for a slip up. And then, I mean, that brings pretty much every team into the equation. Like, it gives it a bit more parity where obviously the better teams will come through over time when you're talking about being able to play 3 games and needing to win 2 to qualify. In a sudden shootout, anyone can sort of go through. So I think that would be interesting. But from a Champions Trophy standpoint, I think obviously you've got the likes of India. I'm not sure how Australia will fare because of the huge shape they've taken to their bowling department.
And what the recent performances in Sri Lanka have been terrible. So they're going to be.
Mind you, the pitches in Sri Lanka are completely different to what they'll face. They're a lot flatter wickets in Pakistan and the UAE.
The UAE.
So that hasn't necessarily bared too much in terms of my thinking on their performance, but it's just the inexperience of their bowling lineup, and their batting lineup looks heavily dependent on Travis Head and Steve Smith as well, which I'm not sure is something you want going into a one-day tournament, being reliant on just 2 individuals. I think that New Zealand, possibly South Africa, can pose India a bit of a threat. For the most part, I just see it as a tournament that India should probably win.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think the thing with the Australia that you mentioned there is that they're probably going to bring in Carey. I can see Carey and Josh Inglis both playing. Yeah. So who they'll go with them with the gloves, I'm not too sure. I know they switched during the World Cup. I think
English is their keeper now.
Yeah, so England's got the gloves. So I think that's going to be an interesting to see how they go. And I think that with somebody like Maxwell in your team, you've always going to be in the game. And you're always going to have that opportunity from an X Factor perspective to go and pull something out of the bag. So I think they're always going to be there or thereabouts with that. I think, like you mentioned there, it is just the bowling that's possibly where they're going to fall short, really. And I think a lot of pressure will probably fall on Adam Zampa's shoulders, from that control side of things. And I think that teams will probably I don't think they'll look to go after Zampa at all. I think they'll just use those 10 overs to possibly look at rotating the strike, and then let's take in, where they take the other 40 from, to be honest with you. But I think that Steve Smith he's in some form. He's in that, so do I see him, potentially leading the way from a run perspective? Then you wouldn't bet against it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that traditionally it would be look to take down Zampa to bring the more, obviously, the experienced quicks back into the attack. But as you rightfully said, there's no need to take down Zampa now with them not being there. You just try and limit his damage as much as possible in terms of the wicket column, and then you take as much as you can from the next 40 overs. Steve Smith's form is something to behold. But I just don't think that they have enough when you look at the other teams, you look at India's batting lineup, for example, that's just completely stacked from 1 to
top to bottom.
8 of match winners.
Yeah.
And in ODI cricket, where most of them are striking at pretty much around a run a ball or more.
Yeah, 120.
You know that they're capable of putting up very huge totals, and that in itself puts pressure on opposing batting lineups to go and score at a strike rate or run rate, that's not necessarily something that they may be capable of because of their squad selection or squad depth. So that's where I think like a team like New Zealand, who are very good at tournament play, can come into the equation. I think obviously South Africa as well, who seem to be sliding under the radar of recent months, getting to the World Test Championship final, just putting together some good runs of play at the moment, can sort of chip away and potentially be there or thereabouts at the end as well.
Yeah, definitely. The point you mentioned there about New Zealand as well, when I was looking at the squad, they've got some really good balance with from an all-rounder perspective as well. The likes of Bracewell, Mark Chapman, Santner obviously will, is strong enough to hold his own with a bat. You've got Rachin Ravinda who will give them obviously that left arm spin option as well. So they've got that real balance, and I think with them having the all-round options, it just allows them to sort of change the side up a lot easier than maybe a lot of the other teams. And as we've mentioned before, look, going into tournaments, they have that way of just finding a way, just going under the radar. While all eyes are naturally going to be on England, Australia, and India for obvious reasons. So they just allow them to go about their business and do things like that. And I think it always helps them in that perspective. And when you've got players that they have as well, they'll always, they're always going to be in the game as well.
What are your thoughts on England's chances then? Obviously, you being a supporter.
For me, it's just the form is concerning. But again, you are playing. You have been playing India, so I appreciate the challenges that brings. I do like the idea that they brought in Tom Banton. He has come in, he's coming in some form off the back of the ILT20. So I like that move there. I'm just not sure if I'm not a massive fan, I don't think, of Jamie Overton at 7. I think it sort of exposes that batting lineup a little bit too much for us. And I feel a little bit of pressure potentially being en route where, there's this talk about him returning and stuff. And it's going to take some time, and I don't think we've had that preparation that we probably would have liked. I mentioned before about a team that has Glenn Maxwell, he's always going to be in the game. A team that has Josh Buttler in it, he's always going to be it. And all of a sudden it could click for him. He is the captain. It could just all come together for him. And would I be surprised if that did happen? No, you wouldn't, because of his skill set that he has and stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing Jofra. I want to see him. I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes, because outside of the one-day format, I want the Ashes around in the winter. Part of this is all this process leading into that as well. So I'm intrigued to see how he goes on those some of the pitches in Pakistan. So, for me, I'd like to, if a semi-final finish would be seen as a success for me.
Fair enough.
What do you think?
I just don't think England's team is experienced enough, skillful enough. I think that Ben Duckett is a very good player. I like Ben Duckett. I think that he should have a future opening, obviously, in ODI cricket and Test cricket for probably the next 4 or 5 years, and really putting up some good numbers. Phil Salt, I think, whilst he is an explosive player and that's his role, I think that he goes too hard too early. And so leaves himself wanting for the most part, and sort of leaves the team in a situation where they're having to recover pretty much most games, as opposed to giving himself just that extra bit of time to get in. From what I've seen of Joe Root in that India series, he looks ODI rusty, if that makes sense. He looks like he's lacking game time. Obviously, with the landscape of ODI cricket changing drastically every single year, every single few months, and the tempos at which people bat. You can see that Joe obviously is a quality to himself when it comes to batting in that England setup, but he just looks a bit rusty in terms of the current speed of which ODI cricket is played at, and you'd have sort of liked to have seen him play at least maybe 2 to 3 series leading up into the Champions Trophy, where he could pick back up the pace of ODI cricket, go away, work on some things, come back into another series, try a few things, go away, work on some things, and then come back into one final series leading into that Champions Trophy. But it is what it is. That's the nature of today's game, where sometimes you don't necessarily have enough time or bandwidth to do everything, and so he's obviously a class enough player to figure it out. And obviously you've got Joss Butler, Adil Rashid, Mark Wood, Jofra Archer, but I think for the rest of the team it's sort of clutching at straws at this point and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I'm disappointed as well that obviously Jacob Bethel didn't make. Obviously, I know from another injury that England missed out on, but I thought he would have given us some nice balance in that side as well, which would definitely have helped, or definitely would help in my opinion. How do you see Pakistan going?
Pakistan's batting doesn't seem to be clicking at the moment. Obviously, Babar Azam, I don't know what's happened with him, but he seems to have completely fallen off the boil in all 3 formats, which is a huge loss, not just for Pakistan cricket, but for the game as a whole, because he's one of the faces of cricket on an international and a global scale. So it would be great to see him come back into some level of form. But Pakistan is one of those teams you never know. You can't write them off. They may just spark at the right time, and they're one of those teams that can just take it all the way. So you have to have them as a dark horse, but I don't necessarily have them as a favorite or a main contender per se.
Yeah, do you know? The more I think about it now, we're obviously going through the trophy. We're breaking each side down, and every single time we speak, other than India, because of the squad that they have, we sort of end up pinpointing it down to individuals within that side. So like I mentioned about Maxwell, I mentioned about Butler, you mentioned there. And I think it's because of the volume of 50 over cricket that's been played that nobody has that momentum going into it naturally. So no one has, they don't seem to be like in my opinion, anyway, certain sides don't seem to be dead set on their 11. Because they've been trying this and they've been trying that and tweaking that, and then they've come for 2020 into the 50 overs and stuff. And I think that's where this calendar and this sort of schedule that this just doesn't seem to be, that seems to be all over the place. It doesn't allow for that consistency within that format to then think, that's where I can see how they go about it, and that you end up just sort of relying on individuals to sort of pull you out based on their skills.
Yeah, so it's interesting because, as you said, there hasn't been much ODI cricket played over the past 12 months.
No.
Which you'd not think is the case going into a global event. Pretty much for every other global event, there's sort of a build-up where teams and the international schedule is heavily geared towards that format and teams build up. So as I said, that's another faux pas when you look at, obviously, the Champions Trophy, and I guess the importance that has not been placed on it by the ICC. And it's obviously a bit taxing as well when you have a global event every year. So it just feels like another one as opposed to a special event.
Yeah. And I think that part of, I know I'm not saying that Bumrah's not injured in any way at all, but when you have the IPL that's round the corner, you've kind of you then look at, you've got to look after your body a little bit more, and you've kind of got to protect what you've got around the corner. Whereas previously, in my opinion, that World Cups and these sort of the ICC events were the highlight of the year. So you would work towards that rather than use that as like a bit of a break in the calendar to allow you to get ready for, say, the IPL. So they don't help themselves, as we discussed loads of times before anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be interesting viewing. It's a short, sharp tournament, so that's good. That's actually something that's beneficial to keep people's interests as opposed to dragging on for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Especially when it's not sort of, I guess, been built up or promoted in the right way. So we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll take your prediction now then.
Bog standard India.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would like to come out with something else and give some verified reasonings why I would have gone for somebody else. But you've got to, you can't look past India. And hopefully, from my perspective, I just like to see England, maybe make the semi-finals, but compete.
Yeah,
that's the big thing for me. I want the team, England, to compete, and hopefully the tournament is competitive across the board.
Yeah,
that's what we want to see as well. Tight, good, quality cricket. As cricket fans and as lovers of the game, that's what we want to see. So I'm sure we'll break that down over the next couple of weeks as well and see how that goes.
Definitely, we'll keep a keen eye on it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much for the preview and your insights as always. So yeah, speak to you all soon, guys.
Cheers, guys.